Yeah, we live. Tank Lip. So, we're going to talk some business. Y'all tune in, leave some comments if you want. So, this is going to be like a history lesson of sorts, but it's going to be like a lot of tangents, basically, to make like one point or punchline, like at the end of like a million fucking tangents that I'm about to go on. It's early morning rant style, Tank Lip, in the style of yours truly, Tank Lip. What Tank Lipini, how you doing? It might turn into some of that for where I want to go with this. So you ever like sat down to take a shit? Like you feel like you need to take a shit, but you already took your early morning shit. So it's just that like bloated feeling that makes you want to feel like you got to go to the bathroom, which is a bad sign because they say like when you're dying, like people tend to like migrate or gravitate towards the bathroom for some reason. Like even if they already went to the bathroom, if they about to die, they feel like they got to go to the bathroom. So like they spend a lot of time in the bathroom. So it was like on some shit like that. Not saying I'm about to die. I ain't ready to die. This ain't Biggie. I ain't Biggie Smalls. So, so anyway, I sit down. Let's not make it first person. Let's just keep it hypothetical. Have you ever, oh, I'm already mucking this. Have you ever sat down to take a shit, but even though it felt like you had to, like you didn't really go? I guess you could call that constipation or whatever, but like a little bit comes out, but not like what you thought it was that made you actually sit down and take the time to take that shit. It's just like a little dribble or something, like whatever, just something very like small amount, like almost not even a link of shit, just like enough to where you're stuck there and now you got to spend time like wiping your ass. And actually usually those are harder to wipe than the big ass fucking like 12-inch dildo size like fucking shit links that come out. Those are like real, they come out a lot, but they come out real easy and they're also easy to wipe. It's when you sit down and like almost nothing comes out, but it's enough where you're forced to sit there and wipe, and then it's like you gotta wipe forever and you still can't get that ass clean. Like it's like the longest shit ever, but you really didn't shit much. It's just like the intent was there, you meant to do something, but you're stuck there at that point because there was the intent. Okay, and then you're just wiping. The wiping process fucking takes longer than the fucking big shits. Anyway, that's my perspective on that. This is real talk, but I'm gonna make use it as like an analogy. Like Dear Oviedo Police, Tank Lip History 101. Like that's kind of how I have felt on numerous occasions where I had like good intents, good intentions to like help y'all. Like how you reach out to the community and say like citizens of Oviedo or people living in this city, if you see anything, like don't be afraid to call it in. We're here to help and protect the community. So, as a person of the community, if you feel like there's something that needs to be called in, don't hesitate. Don't take chances. Call in, and we're here to help you and serve the community. So, I don't know. Maybe I should not have taken that invitation literally. But over the years, on numerous occasions, I've been the guy that has called in stuff. And if my beginning analogy about like sitting down and having the intent to take a shit, but like you end up just getting stuck there and then you're just wiping like shit forever, okay, over something that didn't really happen much. Like not much shit came out. So like you had the intent to drop like a big load, but not much got done is basically like the punchline. So, I have the intent of calling in, getting shit done with the police, helping out, and a process that had the intent of accomplishing something begins to seem like that shit that I sat down and intended to drop that dump, that load, but really not much became of the situation. And then you're just stuck there wiping a messy situation, but nothing got accomplished. Do you follow what I'm saying? So that's like my analogy for like dealing with the Oviedo police and Seminole County Sheriff here that also serves Oviedo over numerous occasions that I have been that citizen, try to be that pillar citizen of the community, a good guy that looks out for his neighborhood, looks out for his community, and where a lot of people turn their back and or turn their heads and don't want to be bothered with something, and take that time to call the police, and they're willing to just take the chance that if something's going to happen, well, they're not going to waste their time with it. They're going to hope that someone else takes their time, or they don't even care. If something's going to happen, then something happens. They're not putting that priority in their community where they want to be the fall guy, like myself. I allow myself to be the fall guy. Rich Porter, thank you for joining. I allow myself to be the fall guy and take my time and willing to, knowing the Oviedo police is probably going to look at me like I'm an idiot or a schmuck, but I do it for the sake of the community and protect myself, protect my neighbors, protect the people of Oviedo. And on numerous occasions of doing this, it basically turned into like the person that intends to sit down and drop that big shit, that big load, but all it really does is just make a mess, and then you're stuck there wiping it. So I've also had bad discretion. Now I thought, okay, I have mental illness. This could be on record with them. And I want to establish integrity when I tell them a story or something they need to look into. I don't want to lose my credibility or my integrity and be discounted, or my stories or allegations be unfounded. Go look up that criminal term, unfounded, just based on the fact that Jason Lipp is a character with mental illness. So my way of like sidestepping that obstacle is, more times than not, I usually let them know, like, listen, I do happen to have mental illness, so if you're looking up Jason Lipp background check as you're doing this stop or this police call, you may find that I do suffer with mental illness, but please know, as I'm candid with you and tell you, yes, I have mental illness, that doesn't mean that I'm crazy and that I'm just having delusions and hallucinations and imagining all this. I'm actually a really smart guy. In fact, I even happen to have a master's degree in mental health counseling. So while I suffer with the mental illness on that mental health aspect, I'm also versed in psychology, and I know and to have the discretion on whether something is grounded in reality or if it's not something I should call in. So if I'm calling you, while you may notice that I am a guy that has mental health issues, that should not be an obstacle that you then just look at me like I'm crazy and you don't warrant or find any of my stories or allegations founded. Now, unfortunately, I find that when dealing with the Oviedo police or the Seminole County Sheriff, or if I lived anywhere else, it'd probably be the same thing with any other police department, I feel like when I sit down or meet with these officers, basically it is like sitting down to take that shit. A little bit comes out and it's enough to make a mess, and then you're stuck there dealing with wiping a mess rather than the actual issues. So as soon as, and if I were to sum it up, my allegations or stories become unfounded. So not only may I possibly be a victim of whatever crime I'm calling in to report, I then become another victim to the fact that the police are finding my stories unfounded, okay, not grounded in reality, or that they're not validating what I'm saying. It's called unfounded when you try to report a crime that you think is being committed, but the police don't validate you. That's called unfounded. Look that criminology term up. Okay, and I feel like they don't validate me, they don't give me credibility, or find that my enough stability in me when talking to me that my stories are going to have integrity. And so the circus act and the show begins to be like taking that little dribble of a shit, but then being stuck there and having to wipe up the mess longer than if I took a big shit and could wipe it easy. Okay, because then an obstacle is the officer telling me, flustering me. Okay, before I even get into my story, and as soon as he knows I have mental illness based on whatever's on his records, that he looked up Jason Lipp before he even got there, or me actually telling him, listen, I suffer with mental illness, but here's my story. Don't let my mental illness get in the way of you listening and validating my story. More times than not, before I even get into the story, do we need to call an ambulance for you? Do you think you need medical treatment? Do you need to go to the hospital? And then, a man that's been Baker acted before don't want to go there and get stuck in the psych ward. I get all nervous. So rather than communicate something that might be a valid complaint that could also help the community and help the police maybe derail a crime from being committed, or if it has been committed, deal with it appropriately, they're now dealing with me as though I'm a crazy guy, as though suffering with mental health illness somehow clouds my judgment and discretion when calling in, that I'm just a person wasting their time, basically. No different than the type of treatment a prostitute gets. A prostitute can get raped, and because the police could see she's a hooker, nothing she has to say is valid. So she just got raped by Joe Schmo around the block, which is a crime committed against her, and then she's a victim a second time, twice, all in correlation to the same event, because now it's being unfounded, whatever she's saying. They're not validating her reports, all because of the judgment they're giving her because they know she's a prostitute. And a man with mental illness, and many people with mental illness, that the police know they're dealing with a person with mental illness, I imagine they suffer from that same type of victimization that I've experienced, where not only could I be a victim of some crime, but I'm also being a victim twice by not even being able to communicate with the police under the same integrity that perhaps a doctor or lawyer calling the same exact thing in would get. Or any distinguished person that looks distinguished, just because he's 50 or 60 and has some gray hair on his face, he's now considered more of an adult than a 36-year-old Jason Lipp. What, because I got the cute baby face? And then now I have mental illness, so I'm not treated with the same dignity as a doctor, a lawyer, or another policeman, or a firefighter calls in. As soon as you know he's a firefighter, you're going to give him that integrity. He gets that. He commands that respect based on the fact of what his job is. But the police see Jason Lipp sitting at home. He drives around the neighborhood a lot more than most people because he's not at an 8 to 5 job. Okay, so what is this guy, a drug dealer? Is this just because he's, debilitated, because of his mental illness? Is he not able to work because he is a crazy guy? What, a lot of them don't really understand. It's getting better, but they don't understand the depths of mental illness and that you could suffer it, but be a really brilliant person. The same way Robin Williams, now passed away, I'm going to refer to him for a second, was a brilliant, brilliant actor and a brilliant man. The guy was a pure genius, a comedic genius, a very smart man. What about Einstein? some of the people we defer to as the greatest scientists and people of our time and our era, for the most part, they suffered with bipolar. That's mental illness. I mean, the book goes on and on. Like, if you were talking to those people, would you not give them integrity? So why Jason Lipp? Because Jason Lipp has mental illness. Somehow I lose integrity and I don't get validated, and anything I report is unfounded. So unfortunately, I learned the hard way just to mind my own fucking business and not bother calling in. So, if there's crimes happening in Oviedo, you can thank the fucking police, okay, for kind of derailing my efforts. I have had no qualms and problems. I figured if I'm not working an 8 to 5 job, and I have more time on my hands than most people, the least I could do, if I use my judgment, and I believe based on my judgment, which is not clouded just because I have mental illness, and I'm candid to tell society I have mental illness, the idiot that, let that cat out of the bag, that information, where most people closet that shit and keep it skeletons, I'm a candid guy, so I let that out. Now, when I call something in, I'm not giving integrity. And it begins to be like, sitting down and take a shit, but just a little something comes out, a little something being, oh, I've got mental illness, and then I'm stuck there wiping up, taking an hour on the toilet bowl, wiping shit when nothing even really ever got accomplished. Versus when you drop that big dump and then you quickly wipe and you're done. So I'm not going to give you the complete history lesson, but there have been many times that I call something in, and as soon as mental illness enters the discussion, the script flips. Okay. And, rather than them deal with what I'm actually calling in, it then becomes an investigation of my stability. Do we need a Baker Act you? Which, by the way, is an abuse of the Baker Act. You're only supposed to Baker Act somebody if they are a threat to themselves or others. I have never been suicidal in all of my mental illness. I've been very depressed. I've been manic. Okay, but I've never been suicidal. And I don't go out hurting others. So, technically, I've never been, even though I've been Baker Acted before, I've never actually fit the criteria or the quota for them to do that. So it's a shame. And we talked the other day about some of my deep-rooted angers that I'm trying to work through. That is some of my anger, that I had to go through that just because I didn't know how to speak well. See, police come up and they unfound your reports and don't find anything you're saying is based on grounded reality. They start flustering you and turning the script on you. You get nervous. A guy like myself, before I learned how to be cool, calm, and collected, the tone of my voice would fluctuate and elevate, and I might have not realized as I'm telling them valid reports of something, because of my voice talking louder and maybe my body language looking flustered, because they're flustering me by that extra added pressure and anxiety of, rather than just communicate with them smoothly, like that distinguished 60-year-old doctor with some gray on his beard, he gets the respect to tell his story without the police interrupting them. As soon as I open my mouth and say mental illness, every other sentence I'm trying to get out my mouth, they're interrupting me and saying, well, do we need to call an ambulance? And then a person like myself who doesn't want to go to the hospital begins to worry, like, oh shit, now I'm in a jam. I'm like the guy stuck on the toilet bowl wiping a messy ass shit that really was never successful in the first place. Those constipated shits where you accomplish nothing but you're stuck there wiping up a big mess for a long time. That's me dealing with the police every other time I try to open my mouth once they know I have mental illness. And, I might have been flustered to begin with telling a story, and you've got the cop interrupting you, planting the seed in your head that he's already ready to call an ambulance for you because he's determined you're unstable. just based on bias of mental illness that he's now judged you before even hearing your story. And as you get your story out, he's straining you, pressuring you, and then you're in a your speech gets pressured to get your story out. So that as you're doing that, then your voice is elevating, you're excitable. Now, where he didn't before have any warrants or like really legitimate right or justified excuse to want to Baker Act you, now you look the part of someone that needs to be Baker acted. So you can either just, turn your back on the situation and regret that you called in the first place just to save your ass from the Baker Act, or you can continue. You could be real dedicated like I have and say, fuck it, something really happened. I know it's founded, not unfounded, but a justified, valid reason for calling in, and I could be committed to the cause and try to work through the anxiety the police officer is causing me with all his interruptions and get to the facts and get my story out, hopefully as effective as possible, as quick as possible, before he decides he's heard enough and just says he's leaving, or even worse, decides to fucking throw you in the back of the car and then you lose your rights for 72 hours under the Florida Baker Act. All right, I love police officers, but guys, this is why a lot of people hate you, okay? Because you're there to, under allegedly help and protect the community. But then you've got pillar citizens like myself and other people like myself that want to help also do what they can to keep the community safe. Brian Eggerson, I've always been a big supporter. Brian, what's up, buddy? All right, this is why there are people that hate you and why they're not to justify shootings, but this is a big reason why shit like this happens. Like, you guys are there to serve and protect, and you've got people in the community looking out for you, extra eyes in the community for you, maybe making your job easier, maybe getting people that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten because you've got only so many eyes to look with, and a guy like myself is that extra set of eyes and willing to take his time to call, and then he's a victim for trying to help. And this shit happened at Panera Bread a year ago. Okay, I was going in there. This is just one example, and I'm going to try to not divert too long to this story because y'all already know this from the Tank Lip versus Panera. Josh Pittman, couldn't agree more. Thank you, Josh. But Josh, aren't you FBI? Oh, no, that's another dude I know with the last name Pittman. Sorry, buddy. Josh, do you live in Orlando? Not to put you on the spot. I know a guy. Oh, no. I know a guy named Shane Pittman. Never mind. You related to Shane Pittman by any chance? Not to, invade anyone's privacy and blow your spots. I'm just curious who's tuning in here. I see Rich Porter, Brian Eggerson, and Josh Pittman just left. Maryland. Okay. I just had some Maryland crab cakes the other day, actually for lunch and then for dinner, and it was absolutely delicious. Do they just call them Maryland crab cakes, or does it actually really originate from there? Because they were so fucking good with the aioli sauce. I fucking dipped it in with a side of fried leeks. They were kind of like that blooming